My name is Todd Flory, and I teach fourth grade in Andover, Kansas, in the USA. So our school building is kindergarten through fifth grade, so I teach fourth grade. So my students are grade 4, about 9, 10 years old, and we do all subjects, so math and reading and social studies, science and writing. So yeah, I'm glad to connect with you, and my students often connect with other classes and teachers around the world. So I'm happy to connect with you as well.
Thank you. Thank you. So I would like to start with so who should start first? Sai Nagastri.
Sir, can I?
Yes. Husniya, go ahead.
Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you?
How are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks.
Sir, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What age do kids start school in Kansas?
And so what age do they start school?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So most kids in public school start at kindergarten, which is about 6 years old. So some students go to preschool, which would be the year before, around age 4 or 5, but that's not required. So the official start of school is kindergarten, but some students have a year before that of kind of learning some of the basics before they enter school. But about age 6 is when we start school.
Okay. Thank you. Sai Nagastri.
How many days do kids go to school in Kansas?
Right. So we go to school for 186 days during the year. So our school year usually starts, at least in Kansas, it's a little bit different in different states. But in Kansas, where I teach, we start school about the middle of August, and then we go until the end of May. And so we have usually about a week and a half or 2 weeks of a break for Christmas and New Year's. And then we have usually about a week for spring break, which we had a little bit ago, and then some other breaks, about 186 school days throughout the year.
Okay. Thank you. Farina, over to you.
Hi friend, my name is Farina. I'm a grade student. I'm from Z.P.H.S ILAVARAM. Here my question is, what is para to teacher program in Kansas?
Okay, so parent to teacher program.
Yes, that's what she's asking.
Okay. So in our public school system, we have para-educators, which help with certain students who may need more attention or more one-on-one attention. And so in my classroom, I have a couple of para-teachers who kind of help out in some areas. So the para-to-teacher program, oftentimes a para-educator will want to become a full licensed teacher. And so they can go to school and get their teaching license at the same time that they're working in a school. So they might be helping in a classroom with a certified teacher at the same time they're going to school and getting their teaching license. So it's kind of a shorter way for them to get their teaching license while also teaching and helping in a school at the same time.
Okay. Todd, do you have this para teacher system in all the states in US or exclusively in the city or in the state Kansas?
So most public schools have para-educators. So they often they're not just assigned to one grade level or one classroom. So in my school, I think we have probably 5 or 6 or 7, and they kind of help around with different classrooms with different students. So they might be in one classroom to help with a couple of students for math, and then the next hour they're in a different classroom or a different grade level, and they're helping with a student for reading. So they kind of go around to different classes and help with different students.
Okay, thank you. Subramanian Srinivas.
Hello, sir.
Hi,
How are you, sir?
good. How are you?
I am fine, sir. The requirements to teach in Kansas.
Oh, the requirements to teach in Kansas. Okay, it's a good question. So when I was getting my teaching degree, so it's a college degree. So you go to college and you major in education. So you can either get a teaching license for elementary, which would be kindergarten, so when they start school up until 6th grade or 5th grade, or you can do a teaching degree in secondary, which would be middle school and high school. So 2 different teaching degrees for public school. I have my teaching license for elementary. So I had to go to school and take some classes and get my college degree. Toward the end of my college, when I was studying to become a teacher, then we do something called student teaching. So a student teacher, while they're still in college and they're still getting their college degree, will go into a classroom and help with a teacher for a whole semester. So a half a year usually. Then the student teacher is in the classroom and helping the teacher, and they're teaching some of the lessons and learning firsthand what it's like to be a teacher. And then after they finish that, then they usually get their teaching degree and they graduate from college, and then they're ready to become a teacher on their own and get their own classroom.
So,
Thank you,
Todd, currently you are a primary school teacher, and if it is required, if you want to be promoted to the secondary level or maybe the some other level, so what are the requirements that you need to show to your authorities? I mean, the professional degrees, or what do you want to show, or your experience? What do they take into consideration before they promote you to the next level?
Okay. So whether you teach elementary or middle school or high school, it's sort of the same level, but you specialize in a different area. So if I wanted to, so I teach elementary primary school. So if I wanted to teach high school level, let's say I wanted to teach high school math, then I would have to go back and add something to my degree and take a test. So I would be able to show that I'm able to teach at a certain level, that I know enough about the certain subject area, because at the secondary level, then you're teaching just one subject usually, and so they're teaching just math or just science or social studies or writing, things like that. So I'd have to take a special test in order to teach just that one subject.
Okay, so whereas in India, if we have the required qualification, like mean degree or something like that, depending on the experience, we get promoted to the next level. For instance, if you take me, I am working as a secondary grade teacher at present. So maybe in future I might be upgraded to the head teacher. So that might be the another promotion that I need to get if I get a little more experience. So that's how the promotion system exists in India.
Okay.
Okay. Wow, Lohita, over to you.
Hello, sir. This is Lohita Girija. I am a 9th grader.
Hi.
Can I ask one question, sir?
Yes.
Do students learn robotics and coding right from the primary school?
That's a good question. It kind of depends on the teacher and the school. So not every teacher or school teaches coding or robotics. It's not one of our core subjects, meaning that we don't have to teach it, but it's sort of an extra subject if the teacher would like to teach it. So with my 4th graders, my grade 4 students, we do a little bit of coding. I would like to do more, but it's kind of hard to find the time sometimes because we're so busy with other things. But we've done some robotics. My school has a STEAM lab, or a makerspace lab, and so every couple weeks we go in and We do some hands-on projects. We build things. We do some engineering. We do a little bit of coding and robotics. So my students do a little bit, but not as much as I'd like. But we try to work it in as much as we can.
Yeah, the reason actually the girl asked this question because robotics and coding are the two demanding subjects everywhere in the world. I think these subjects are a part of their curriculum. So
Right.
that's why the reason the girl asked. And if you, I request you, if there is any possibility, we would like to see your students' projects in robotics and especially robotics, maybe in the your morning session when your school is in progress.
Oh yeah.
We can connect with you from our homes so that we can see the what is exactly the robotics, because unfortunately we don't have the robotic subject in our curriculum. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
we don't do a whole lot with that. Do you do any coding or anything, or use code.org or any sites like that?
Unfortunately, coding is also not part of our curriculum. Maybe in future
Yeah.
it might be included, but there are some schools in India, the private schools, where these two subjects are part of their curriculum.
Yeah, it's I understand it's not part of our curriculum either, but we try to fit it in as any way we, as it's such important fields, and the students are really interested in it, and it helps them do critical thinking and problem solving. So they like to do it as much as they can.
Yes, thank you. Jaishnavik, over to you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Hello, sir.
Oh, hello, how are you?
How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thanks.
My name is Jaishna Likita, a sixth grader. I would like to ask one question, sir.
Sure.
What is the difference between a teacher and a para?
Okay, so a teacher and a para. So a teacher has a certified teaching license. Classroom. And so a teacher is responsible for all the students in the classroom and the learning, whereas a para doesn't have to have a teaching license. So they might be working toward a teaching license, but a para mainly is responsible for helping a couple of students in a classroom who may need some extra support and extra help.
Okay, thank you. So, Pushra, do you have any question?
Sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, sir.
Right. Hello.
My name is Bushra. I am an 8th grader from Z.P.H.S. ILAVARAM. I would like to ask a question. My question is, how much does a para get educator paid in Kansas?
Okay. So how much does a para educator get paid?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Kansas? It kind of depends on how long they've been working. So a para educator, since they don't have quite as many responsibilities as the teacher, usually paid a little bit less than a teacher, since they don't have quite as many responsibilities. Let me see my cat walking behind me. So a para, usually it's paid around $15 an hour. It kind of depends on the area and the state. So some states might be a little bit more than other states. And it kind of depends on how long that paraeducator has been working at the school. So the longer you work there, then the increase in salary and the more you get paid. But starting off is probably about $15 an hour, I think.
Okay, thank you. Students, do you have any more questions? Raise your hands, please. Raise your hands. Yes. Swati, go ahead and ask the question.
Hello, sir. This is Swati. I am an 8th grader from G.P.H.S. ILAVARAM. I would like to ask a question.
Yes.
What subjects are taught at primary school in your state?
Okay. So in my school for 4th grade in elementary, so we do math. So currently in math, we just finished up we're learning about decimals and fractions, and we're doing measurement right now. So we learn about math, we learn about science, We finish up in a unit in science on energy and different types of energy and energy transfer. Social studies. So social studies would be a combination of history and government and economics and geography. So we were starting a unit on economics and the economy and social studies. We also teach reading and language arts. So that would include reading different types of books, so fiction and nonfiction, writing, spelling, grammar, things like that. And then we also have some other subjects where my students go to. So each day, my students either go to art, music, or PE for 45 minutes. So they rotate. So one day they might be going to physical education. The next day they might be going to art. The next day they might be going to music. So we have those for 45 minutes in each day as well.
Okay. So among the academic subjects or the optional subjects, which subjects do your students like most?
Okay. Kind of depends what we're doing in the subjects. So usually science is pretty popular because we do a lot of projects and hands-on things. So my students really like science. We try to do some fun things in math. So they like math as well. So those are probably the two top subjects that my students like.
Okay, thank you.
Are students promoted to next class based on their marks or any other parameter?
Okay. So pretty much all students or the vast majority of students are promoted to the next grade after each school year. So very rarely is a student held back to repeat the same grade. But we try to encourage students, if at all possible, to move on to the next grade. So not only for academic, but also for social and those areas as well. So it'd be very rare for a student to be held back. So we usually take academics and grades into account. But there'd have to be some special circumstances for a student to be held back, but mostly always, then they're promoted on to the next grade.
Okay, but in India, as you, I don't know whether you are aware of that, and in my region, especially, most of the students are promoted to the next level and not based on their abilities, just based on their attendance, they are simply promoted. So this is probably the reason teachers are always in trouble, because when the student reaches to the next level, if he doesn't have the minimum learning abilities, it is very tough and challenging for the teacher to teach him the kind of subjects that we are supposed to teach. So we can't teach him the basics. The same time, we can't teach the textbook, content. So it's always tough. For me personally, I balance the two kind of kids in my classroom. I keep half of the students outside my classroom and half of the students inside the classroom. And I have to teach the parallelly and different subjects within the 45 minutes. It's always tough for me because of this kind of system that is exist in our school system. So if we restrict the student from the level, if he doesn't have the minimum learning abilities, so he can learn the basics at that level, or he can held back and he can maybe he can learn the things again. But lack of the system, we are struggling as a teacher, as a person also.
Yeah. It is difficult because you have students who are a little bit below grade level and maybe math or reading. So you try to catch them up as well as push the other students forward. So we have a system where students who are below grade level in, let's say, reading or something, then they get some extra help, and so they might go to a small group in a different classroom for half an hour or an hour, and then get some extra support there to try to close that gap and make those gains.
Okay.
Yeah, it is difficult to to kind of manage both.
Yes, if any student in your class or any other class, if his minimum learning abilities are very low, so would you like to recommend him to be promoted to the next group, or would you like to give him any other foundational teaching or remedial teaching in order to uplift him to the next level?
So pretty much the student will be moved on to the next grade level. Even if they're behind in math or reading, then this will be moved on to the next grade level, but yet they'll still have that support for the next year where they'll get some further, they'll get more instruction that's more targeted to their level, in addition to what they're learning in the regular classroom. So they'll be moved on to the next grade level, be able to get extra support in order to kind of accelerate those gains.
Okay, that means do you have the teaching staff or teaching people? I mean, do you have a separate teachers who can deal with these students?
Some, yes. So we have some reading specialists in our building. And so if a student is behind in reading, then they'll be working with that teacher for those paras to get a little bit extra help of practice for reading. So we have some staff dedicated just for extra support for those students.
Okay, thank you. How frequently do your students take the test?
Okay. It sort of depends on the teacher and the subject. For reading, we usually take a reading test each week. So we kind of focus on one story for reading per week. So we read and we discuss, we do skills, and then they take a test, a reading test at the end of the week. For math, it might be a little bit longer. It might be a couple weeks at the end of the unit. So it kind of depends on the subject. And sometimes we do sort of a larger test. Sometimes it's maybe a shorter quiz or just kind of an informal assessment. So it kind of depends on the subject and what we're learning. We also do state testing each spring, and that's required by the state. And so all students in starting in 3rd grade and higher have to take a state test in math and reading. So 2 days of math tests, 2 days of reading tests. And that's, again, required by the state that we do every spring. And so they can look at that data and the scores and kind of look and see how students are doing across the state.
Okay, students, do you have any more questions? Raise your hands if you have. Okay, it looks like everybody has asked the question, and I have a few questions left. Todd, how often do you have the training sessions to just to improve our professional skills as a teacher?
Like professional development?
Yeah, professional development.
So we have different days. So for instance, tomorrow is a professional development day in my district. And so tomorrow the students, tomorrow is Friday for us. So it's Thursday night right now for us here. So tomorrow my students don't have school. So they have a 3-day weekend. So they're off tomorrow, but teachers are going in tomorrow. So teachers, we probably have a professional development day every month and a half or so, where just the teachers come in and we do have certain trainings or we might learn about work on different things, have a chance to collaborate with our grade level team and do some planning. So it kind of looks differently. It has different focuses, but we, every month or month and a half, then we usually have some professional development day.
Okay. And how is the supervision in your classes? That means is there a particular head teacher and is a particular official who supervises, who monitors the quality of the teaching in the classroom?
Okay. So we have a principal. So the principal is in charge of the school, and every so often he'll do walkthroughs, and so he'll come through and kind of observe the teaching, the lesson. So sometimes it'll be random, so he'll just kind of come in and at different lessons at different points, and maybe just stay for about 5 or 10 minutes and just kind of see how the lesson is going, make some notes, and then provide the teacher with feedback on what he saw, some positives, some negatives, some things to improve on, and things like that. So the principal goes in a lot to different classrooms and just kind of observes, and then gives some feedback to the teachers.
Okay, so are you required to prepare or design the lesson plans that you teach on day-to-day basis?
We have a lot of freedom and flexibility on how we can, on what lessons we teach. So we have a certain curriculum. So for math, we have a certain book that we go through in different lessons, and same thing with reading, in science and things like that. But teachers are also, at least in my district, they do a good job of viewing us as professionals and giving us freedom to supplement and to kind of teach that in the best way that we know how. And so, yes, we have resources from the district that are given to us, books that the students learn from, teacher manuals, things like that. But we're also able to kind of teach it in our own way and put our own professional development and professional ideas in it. And so we can kind of add to the lesson or teach it in a certain way, do different strategies, things like that. So we have a lot of kind of leeway and flexibility to not just teach it one certain way, but we're given resources and we can teach it to our own professional way.
So how frequently you change the curriculum? And in India, I think it depends on the states, and they sometimes they change their curriculum after 5 years, maybe after 10 years. And even textbooks also they keep changing the textbooks meant for the different classes. So do you have any governmental organization or a body that can change the curriculum or the textbooks from time to time?
Yes. So math and reading, we change more often. Seems like the most focus is on math and reading. And so we change those, that curriculum of those textbooks more often. So our current math series, this is our second year, and so we just changed that recently. So we're in year 2 of our current math series. Our reading series we've had for about 5 or 6 years. And next year, we're going to be changing that and getting a new one. So math and reading about every 5 or so years. We get new 5 or 6 years, we get a new curriculum, or maybe keep the same curriculum, but get updated textbooks. Science and social studies, it's a little bit less often. So I think in our district, science, we're supposed to get a new curriculum maybe in a couple years. And social studies, we've had the same social studies textbooks in our district for a long time. So I'm in year 11 in my building, and we've had those same textbooks for at least 5 years when I get there. So they're probably 15 years old, if not longer. So we're definitely due for some new and updated social studies books. We haven't had those in a long time.
Okay, thank you. One more question, one last question is coming up now.
Yeah.
Dealing with the primary school students is always tough for a teacher because their level of retention is very, very poor, because these kids, they want to play games more than concentrating and focusing on the subjects. So how is your style of teaching, and do you like to teach them with the play way method, or what kind of teaching strategy you usually apply in your classroom?
Okay, it's a great question. Yeah, at the beginning of the year, I spend a lot of time on routines and expectations. So teaching routines of how I want things done, expectations of the classroom. So we spend a lot of time on that in the first beginning part of the year. And even now we're getting toward the end of the year, and I'm still having to remind students sometimes of those. But setting those expectations and routines at the beginning of the year is really, really important. And then also trying to make the lessons and projects engaging and relevant for the students is super important as well. So doing activities where they're learning how to do something that is relevant in their own life or that they're interested in kind of helps to keep their attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So before we end this session, could you please give a final message to my students?
Right. So I think that, it's great that you're connecting. I know you connect with a lot of teachers and people all around the world, and you have a great teacher there in India in your school. So I would encourage you to keep focusing and working hard, dreaming big, doing things that that kind of maybe push the boundary of what you're able to learn, and keep striving for great things. And yeah, I think it's really awesome that you guys are speaking with people all around the world and expanding your horizons and learning all these new things. So thank you very much for talking with me, and I really enjoyed speaking with you.